dance for joy or lust or anger in it.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Reviews, the series where we look at practical, sensible cars that you can buy for a budget of between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 2016 Vauxhall Corsa E 1.4 Sting, and it's really rather agreeable. So the Corsa E, we're not talking about the electric version of the Corsa here. That's the current model, which is known as the Corsa F. So it's the Corsa F, Corsa E. We're talking about the previous generation to the Corsa F, which was launched in 2014. This is a 66 registration example, and it's in the Sting trim level, which was sort of towards the, I'd say, the kind of bottom end of the range, because although we've got certain things, we've got some nice wheels and got cruise control with this car, we don't have any air conditioning, which is really, really strange. The bottom of the range engine in this was, funnily enough, the same engine that was in the Vauxhall Adam that I drove when I was here back in March at Langley Prestige near Chelmsford, and I must say thank you once again to Simon and Dale for the ability to come and drive some of their lovely stock. That 1.2 generated just 70 PS. Above that, an engine that actually replaced it in the Corsa eventually, a 1.4 with 75 PS. There was also a 90 horsepower version of that engine. Then you get up to the turbo 1.4s. They're all versions of the good old General Motors Family Zero engine that came out in the Corsa B in 1996. So two turbos, one with 100 PS, and then one in the GSI model with 150 PS. The engine that a lot of people seem to want to go for, though, in the Corsa E, is the 1 litre, it's known as the small gasoline engine SGE, and it wasn't available after 2018. When Peugeot Citroën PSA bought Vauxhall Opel in 2017, one of the first things that they did was to actually kind of make some changes to make the car a little bit cheaper to them to make, and that involved, by the end of Adam production, reducing most of the engines down to just 1.2, and in this Corsa, getting rid of the small gasoline engine, which was a very expensive engine to actually put into the cars. And that actually was, I think, supposed to replace the 1.4 effectively, because it had a 95 brake horsepower version and a 110 brake horsepower version. So those are quite desirable. The ultimate version of the Corsa E, of course, is the VXR, which is 1.6 engine, Family 1 engine, but that dates back to the early 1980s, but obviously substantially updated through the years. And in the Corsa E, it generates 205 horsepower. I've driven a VXR Nürburgring edition in a Corsa D, which is the 2011 one I think I drove, and that was really bonkers, but not intimidating, if that makes sense. The fundamental platform of the Corsa E is very similar to the previous Corsa D that came out in 2006, and is actually also very similar to the Fiat Grande Punto or just Punto later on. And actually the Punto was finally discontinued in 2018, and the Corsa E was discontinued in 2019, so they had a very similar kind of production life on that shared General Motors and Fiat platform. The E doesn't actually share many body panels really with the D. It's mainly the roof and the glass house of the car that are the same. Everything else is quite different, but I can spot in here quite a few shared parts actually between the two of them, but there actually aren't as many as you'd imagine. So a lot of people thought the Corsa E was a completely new car, when of course it wasn't. And a lot of the engines are kind of similar too. Certainly to drive, they feel really quite similar. And you know, that's not really a surprise. It's still a very nice car. I think they've worked a bit more on the noise, vibration and harshness this time, and so that is pretty good. I'm afraid the weather's not as agreeable as it was the last time that I came here, viewers, but never mind, we shall continue. I've always thought the Corsa E looks considerably better than the Corsa D. That is obviously a very subjective thing. I'm not entirely sure. I like the white wheels on this, but at least they do match the mirror caps and everything like that. I do think it is quite a handsome design actually, and they have improved various bits of the interior as well, but fundamentally the car has the same amount of space inside, so it's not an all new car by any means. We've only got drum brakes on this, but the engine's only got 75 PS, so it's not really going to be a massive problem, I don't think. So we'll open up the boot. I think it's 285 litres, which is the same as the Corsa D. Unsurprisingly, you know, it looks almost identical in here to one of those. So if we lift up this and have a look, we haven't actually got the spare wheel in here. It's something I would absolutely recommend that you go for if you can, but not to worry. Certainly it's quite easy to find sort of things, although I don't see a 12-volt socket in here. I'm wondering where the boot light is actually. Oh, it's there, okay. I wondered if it actually had one for a moment. Of course it does. You can pull the boot lid down either from that side or that side, which is very good. So one of the main things that I'm very happy about actually in one of these, as opposed to the previous model, is some of the interior fittings have been completely changed. One of them is the steering column, which is not the same as before, and actually it's the same steering column as in a lot of Vauxhall and even Chevrolet products which were around when the car was launched in 2014. It's the same steering column, for example, as the one that was in my Chevy Cruze that I had, and the second one I had two of those. And the headlight switch has been changed as well. That's out of an Astra J, and so is the steering column. In fact, everything here, the key will be really familiar to lots of people who had Vauxhalls, Opels, even Chevys at the time. It's very strange specification. So you can see the air conditioning is missing here, but we've got cruise control, which is really bizarre. But you know, Vauxhall trim levels always were a bit bizarre back in the day. There were tons and tons of them. Very confusing to work out where cars sat in the range, and also some of the spec was really weird. Yeah, I mean, I would probably go for a car with air conditioning over cruise control, but there we go. One thing we do have is the city button here to make the steering lighter, akin to the Fiat Grande Punto. I think they had those as well, so obviously a joint developed system between General Motors and Fiat. Seats very comfortable, got a USB port down here, 5-speed manual in this car. You could get a 6-speed on some other models, of course, and you could get an automatic. See if that's actually, yep, 12-volt socket down there too, and some cup holders, and that, I don't know, I'm not sure you could put anything in there because that's where the handbrake is. You've not really got a full centre console in this. I think in some of the Apple models you could get that. But yeah, everything's really easy to use. Look at these controls for the heating and ventilation, really easy to use. Stereo's really quite simple as well. It's not as complicated as the old Astra J stereos were, that's for sure. So we'll just close the door. This is a bit damp out there. Nice big door pockets, again very easy to use. switches and things for the electric windows and the electric mirrors. I don't know if they still light up in some models like they did in the previous car. Do we have Charlie the Shark in here somewhere as well? Do we have Charlie? Or whatever his name is. Oh, one thing we do have is a rubbish glove box. My secret mission documents are not going in there. They obviously not moved the fuse box from left to right-hand drive, have they, viewers? That sort of shows you a bit of the kind of origin of the platform, which would be more of a sort of akin to what Fiat would do as opposed to Vauxhall or Opel. But never mind, it's not a problem. Materials actually do feel quite nice. It's a high quality, soft feel dash. The indicator stalks have actually been changed for ones that aren't one-touch anymore. I hate one-touch indicators. One of the worst things that anyone's ever thought of, really. Just normal indicator stalks, which is brilliant. And yeah, you know, because the parts are shared with so many other sort of models, you know, various Chevrolets, Opels, Vauxhalls, I think even the steering column is similar in like a Camaro or something at this time, which is really odd. They feel pretty good. There's the controls for the Bluetooth phone connectivity, buttons for the stereo. Yeah, it doesn't have a footrest or anything, but you don't expect that in a car like this. Even the seat fabric is quite nice. This car's done 41,000 miles. It's had one owner, so it would be, you know, obviously one of the better ones out there, I think. Right, we're going to have to do something that I have to do for Mr. Manning for the Matty's Cars channel, and that is get into the back. But we will just turn this on and have a look at the display here. Actually, if I start it, will it show me the display? I think so. I'll just do it with my left hand. There we go. Actually, we'll just do it like that. Yeah, the menu's just sort of here. There's really not an awful lot to say. There's the remaining oil life, and there's the trip computer. Is that all you get? With a huge sort of big screen there, but not a lot going on. Not a lot going on at all. That's it. If you go, oh, there we go. Tyre learn. Okay, got temperature monitoring, unit select. Okay, tyre load, PSI. Good. That's all right. That's all 4 tyres. Brilliant. Right, we can come out of there, actually. We don't need to sort of do anything in there, but that's kind of all you get. It's not that exciting, is it? And neither is the display on the stereo. That's not very exciting either, but, you know, if you're buying a car like this, do you really need anything more than that? You could get a whole sat-nav system that's sat kind of there as well and everything like that, but, you know, this'll do, won't it? The cabin does feel very familiar. If I turn it off a second. To the Vauxhall Adam, and that's not really a surprise because the Vauxhall Adam is just one of these underneath. It's a little bit shorter, which I quite liked. I very much enjoyed driving the Adam back in March. That was for sale here. Anyway, I better stop waffling and get into back. I hope I don't sound like Roger Moore's stunt double from View to a Kill again. So, put this forward. There we go. Okay, viewers, let's see if we can get into back. No noises so far. Yeah, just a cup holder there. We have got 3 seat belts in the back, but you wouldn't want to carry somebody in here for very long in the middle. Not really. There's actually adequate headroom, which is fine. See if the seat will... Well, I can't quite sit in my driving position here. It's not too far off. I mean, that's it there. We have got a little indentation in the seat there so that, you know, I can do that. See, a 5-door would be a bit more practical, but this 3-door is fine. I think the 3-doors look a bit better than the 5-doors anyway. Yeah, rather like the D, it's actually not too bad. They were known, sort of, the Corsas from the sort of B and C models for being a little bit bigger inside than most of their competitors back in the day, and this is pretty good. By the sounds of like 2006 when the D came out, it's excellent. Obviously, by the time that this car was made in 2016, it was probably a little bit more cramped than a lot of these sort of Super Minis were. But yeah, compared to Mark 7 Fiesta, I'd say it's probably a little bit bigger than that, actually. Right, let's have a look at the engine, shall we? So, good old family zero engine in this car with a potentially rattly timing chain. developing in this case 75 PS. It's a really common fault on these with the rattly timing chains, and sometimes it's the old pressure switch, which is I think a £5 part to change, that is sort of causing oil loss and things like that. That's easily remedied. There are some places out there that do timing change. Generally on like a cam belt you do have a little bit more kind of warning as to whether it's going to go or not, and you know that there's loads of these out there, so if you do have a timing chain that rattles and it's quite easy to hear it, maybe it's time to just buy another one. This one is absolutely silent, so no problem with that here. Just notice actually that the grille is colour coded to the wheels, which is nice, but plenty of room actually in here to work on things. You can clearly see what the gearbox is and everything like that. There's all this space in here, which is remarkable. It pretty belies the fact that this car does date back to 2006 for many of the components. Although I think the front end of it, which looks a bit like the Adam of course, is very pleasant. I think generally it's a very nice looking car and one of the most successful effectively facelifts that I've ever pulled off in the automotive world. Right, I think it's time for another drive, viewers. So what is this car actually like to drive? Well, we're going to have to fiddle with the steering mode in a second and use the city button that I probably would never use, but I always like the gearboxes in these. They are much nicer and stronger gearboxes than the old Vauxhall ones used to be. Clutch is nice and light if you were using this as a driving school car, which I think they were used for even as late as these Corsa, then you wouldn't find any nasty surprises. We've got a shift light here, which is a bit annoying, but there we go. Despite the engine only having 75 PS, this is the lowest power of the 1.4s in this car, it feels actually quite punchy. I think 0 to 62 is supposed to be something like 15.5 seconds, but it feels considerably quicker than that. I don't quite know why. Similar thing with the Adam that I drove that only had, I think, 70 PS, that 1.2. These engines seem to be a bit more punchy than actually they appear. I don't know if that's to do with the fact that this is a 4-cylinder as opposed to the smaller 1 litre that you can get, but yeah, very relaxing to drive actually. No problem around town or anything like that. Possibly lacking a bit of power on the motorway. You probably want to go for one of the higher powered engines if you're doing a lot of motorway work, but yeah, it's pretty good. This is a car that Dale, who works for Simon, has chosen for his stock, and I can totally understand why he's done it. If someone wasn't concerned about the air conditioning, then this would be a really good car just to run around in for everyday use. You don't need to spend a lot on insurance either. These are quite cheap to insure because this is the lowest power engine that they offered at the time. So yes, actually quite a nice car. Some things to be aware of, but there we go. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. So viewers, it's an exciting time when we look at Vauxhall Corsa E trim levels. There are an awful lot of them, and a lot of them overlapped, and it is very confusing. So start off with the Active, then the Black Edition, the Design, the Diamond, the Elite, the Energy, the Excite, the Griffin, the GSI, the Life, the Limited Edition, the Red Edition, the SE, the SE Nav, the Sport, the SRI Nav, the SRI, the SRI VX line, the longest thing ever, the SRI VX line Nav Black, the Sting, like this one, the Sting R, I don't know what R stands for, the White Edition, and then of course the VXR. So viewers, should you consider a Vauxhall Corsa E as a sensible car with your hard-earned budget of between £1,000 and £5,000, well, as long as you can avoid, things like rattly timing chains, and these cars do have some suspension issues from memory, then actually they do make for good buys. One like this, which is a very well cared for car, it's low mileage, done 41,000 miles, will probably run for a number of years as long as you look after it. But please make sure you don't skip on the servicing, because that's one of the main causes of the timing chains actually failing, is that the oil is not kept up to the same quality and the level it needs to be. But apart from that, I quite like this car actually. I've always quite liked these. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more reasonably priced motoring.